Good morning, and welcome to a special episode of Morning Movie News, my review of last night's Oscars. And the award season is finally over, so the question is to go out with a bang or a whimper, and I'd say it was a mixed bag. So first off, I want to start with the big stories of the evening. Now, I think by far and away, I have my notes here if that's what you're wondering what I'm referencing, but I think by far and away the biggest story and the biggest star to come out of last night was Lupita Nyong'o. She just gave a very charming and eloquent speech, really well done, and I think it was actually helped by the fact that we haven't really heard from her personally since this whole thing began. She got to make an acceptance speech at the SAG Awards, but still, not a big viewership for that. So even though we've seen her picture and we've seen her very gracefully lose to Jennifer Lawrence at the Golden Globes, I think at large the movie-going audience hasn't heard Lupita Nyong'o. They've heard Patsy, but not Lupita Nyong'o. And speaking of Patsy, I felt that it was really sophisticated and smart of Nyong'o to reference Patsy in her speech and to say it's tragic and sad that so much happiness would come from a real person's intense pain. And I thought that was a really, Jared Leto was impressive with his speech, but we've heard that from him before. This was fresh. And that's, I guess for Leto, that's just one of the downsides of winning every award. It's hard to find new material, I guess. But he still came off very gracious. I think both supporting actors were very, very gracious in their acceptance speeches. As for Jennifer Lawrence, though, I think she really dodged a bullet not winning the award. As I discussed in the viewer audience results episode yesterday, I think she would have had a bit of a backlash because it would have been very unsympathetic for her to take this, or some people would feel steal this Oscar away from Lupita Nyong'o. So I think she actually lucked out not winning here, although I still think she needs to dial it back. I think she's on the very edge of a backlash, and I think she needs to be careful not to push. I think her diehard fans, it'll take a lot for them to go against her, but I think the mainstream, you never want people to tire out, and I thought her little bit about what are you laughing at when she came out to give the Best Actor award, let's just say she's no Joe Pesci. Also, I don't want to go back to Lupita Nyong'o for a moment. Somebody asked me in the comment section of my the audience vote video as to whether or not this might lead to better roles for black black actresses. I was going to say female actresses, but of course. And I think, I'm not sure, I hope so. Of course, Viola Davis made a very controversial remark when she was nominated for The Help, saying, Hattie McDaniel was the first black actor at all to win an Oscar for Gone with the Wind, playing a maid, and here I am a century later, also being nominated for playing a maid. And I don't really think playing a slave is a step forward, but I guess at least it's something different. But I'll talk about this actually tomorrow on Morning Movie News, returning to regular episodes, but it's a big part of what my problem with the Fantastic Four casting, that Sue Storm is not being played by a black actress, even though her brother in the film, Johnny Storm, is. And I really do feel that Hollywood, they have a blind spot when it comes to, they have done a very good job with black actors and, white actresses, but I think black actresses are still a blind spot for the industry. All right, so that's the first big story. I think Lupita Nyong'o couldn't have come off better, so kudos to her. All right, so, yes, I think she really needs to secure a great role if she's going to have the stick. I think that's going to be the final component of this, the making of a star. So I hope she can find a really great role. She was a nonstop this weekend, but that was, a very small, tiny part before obviously she blew up. She has very few lines. She's good in the lines that she has, but she needs a really great role. A Meryl Streep type role that shows some range also, I think, to really maybe make her the next Meryl Streep or maybe be on her way. She certainly has the track record already. First movie, first Oscar. As I said in my Best Supporting Actress video, even Meryl couldn't do that. All right, so that's the first big story. Second, Ellen's selfie. The selfie photo she took of herself and all the actors who were sitting towards the front. I retweeted it. Everybody retweeted it. She really did break Twitter with that. First of all, I was really impressed that the Oscars let her tweet from her own show's account, the Ellen Show, instead of the Oscar account. I guess that was in her contract. But I think the whole bit really underscores how important social media has become, maybe not to audiences, but to the Hollywood suits. Because look at Jimmy Fallon. I mean, he's not killing it in the ratings. I mean, he has some good numbers, but they're not fantastic. But NBC seems to be very happy because every time he's on, he does dominate Twitter. And I think that really seems to be, a litmus test for success. I guess they want to make sure people are talking about the show so that even if they're not watching it, and I guess this is kind of Hollywood admitting they know that a lot of people aren't watching their content as it airs, I guess, or maybe they want to make them tune in when people see, oh, it's trending. I wonder if really that many people are on Twitter to make that kind of a difference. I wonder if we're dealing with those kind of numbers. But anyway, I think if Ellen would be judged by her success, by this, and I think a lot of people in Hollywood would judge it that way, she was a very good host because she broke Twitter. Fallon couldn't even do that. And as people are saying this morning, even Obama couldn't do that. And Obama has had pictures that I think are the most popular to date. But it was a very good selfie. It was a great photo. And I thought that was one of Ellen's best bits. I saw some headlines this morning that said in the industry papers that she was much better than Seth MacFarlane. I actually would not agree with that. I thought Seth MacFarlane was better. I thought he was edgier. He was more current. And I think he was more, what mainstream audiences want today. I think Ellen was a very safe choice and delivered a very safe show, except for that one Liza Minnelli joke in the opening. That was unusually mean for Ellen DeGeneres. I was surprised that she went there. Although I did like where she went with the Jonah Hill joke. That was an excellent joke. And a lot of her opening jokes were quite good. I thought that monologue was very solid. And it's nice to see as the monologue dies out because people don't tweet a monologue. They're more into sketches and bits now. I'm glad to see somebody. I think the monologue is a great art form. The Tonight Show up through Leno really focused on how important the monologue was. I think a lot of people grew up on the monologue, and I think that it's great to see that someone can still do it. And so she was very good with that. Let's see. Also, I thought Brad Pitt, fantastic sport all night. He came off as the MVP. He was great. I think he and Ellen are friends in real life, but they sure seemed like they were. I thought it was so great when he was handing out plates for the pizza. I thought that was really funny and clever. And I think he kind of somewhat was her assistant for the evening. And how great is that? Also, Ellen, very brave to hand out pizza, by the way, in a white tux. So every time Harrison Ford reached out for a napkin or something, I was like, oh, don't get the suit. So that was fun. Then also, Slates for Sarah succeeded. I think that's an important headline. If you haven't heard the story, I'm going to also talk about this later this week on Morning Movie News. This is the assistant camera operator, who, the person who worked the slate on many productions in Atlanta. Vampire Diaries, she was a big part of that crew, but she was working a week or so ago on a film shooting in Atlanta, and when she was struck and killed by a train. And there's a rumor that they did not have they were not approved to shoot there. They did not have the permit, but they shot there anyway, endangering their crew. In this case, to the point where someone died. And people have, as I said, I'll go into this in more depth later this week. But a big group of people started a lobby on Facebook saying Slates for Sarah, where people had a film slate and they would write something on it in honor of her. And they were also really lobbying the Academy to include her in this memoriam. I was looking for it and I was like, oh my God, they left her out. They're horrible. They are Mr. Potter and It's a Wonderful Life, the Academy. How dare you? And then they put her up in a special spot after Bette Midler sang. But I think some people are arguing that she should have been part of the official memoriam. I guess you could say maybe it was too late to change it, but come on, in today's digital age, we know you can change something mere hours before it airs. But at least she was there. And I think that's an important thing for Hollywood to do, in a night of glitterati, really honoring only the top tiers of filmmaking, to remember that filmmaking is very much a group effort, and there are a number of people involved who are all very important. And then also, though, on the flip side, the special effects community was outside picketing yet again 1 year after Life of Pi, when Rhythm and Hughes tried to use their Oscar acceptance speech for Best Special Effects for Life of Pi to talk about how their effects studio was going bankrupt because of Hollywood practices. A year later, really nothing has changed. I think some would argue it has gotten worse. They have, just in short, really just quickly, I'll touch on it. The situation is that they're still having a situation where the special effects houses aren't protected. They have to underbid for jobs. It means they're agreeing to do work for less money than it costs to do it, forget even making a profit. It's driving companies either out of business, into bankruptcy, or abroad. And that's another problem that special effects artists are having, where they're being asked to move and uproot their families to Canada, not so bad, or also the other side of the globe, the Far East and such. I remember a story recently, Lucas Industrial Light and Magic, just recently opened something in Asia, a facility. And it's like, well, it's more jobs going overseas. And if there's talent there, that's great, but we certainly don't want to sit at the expense of the talent that has created this industry. But I still feel the same way. These people need to unionize. That's the second big story. So we have third, Lupita Nyong'o, Ellen's selfie, slates for Sarah, and then also the next one, McConaughey versus DiCaprio. Everybody knew McConaughey was going to win. It was like 99.999. It's like the smallest percentage off that he wouldn't win. And although endearingly, he still seemed very nervous that something would go wrong. And things have gone wrong in the past. Just ask Mickey Rourke and also Kate Hudson so infamously. Two people who were really predicted to win, had won everything else up until that moment, and then didn't win the Oscar. But McConaughey did win. But I was very surprised on Twitter to see a big backlash against him, saying, I can't believe the guy who starred in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Failure to Launch, and Ghost of Girlfriends Past has an Oscar, and Leonardo DiCaprio does not. And I really think that those people who are angry about this are missing the point. And I talked about this in my coverage for Best Actor, but I'll just touch on it again to diffuse the anger so that you can have a nice day and not feel bad about it. The difference here is that McConaughey did come from that place. McConaughey turned his entire career around and was able successfully to go from making movies like Ghost of Girlfriends Past, which I sat through. It was horrible. How to Lose a 10 Guys, though, was a pretty darn good movie and did very well. So I wouldn't say bad things about that film. But he was able to, just think about it, that actor was able to turn himself into Ron Woodruff and Russ Cole over in True Detective. It is a remarkable transformation. And not just in his performances, but how he thinks as an actor. I was reading a story in Us Weekly, of all places, yesterday at the hair salon, and they had him talking about how his wife's the one who was responsible for him turning everything around, etc. But what really stuck with me was his end quote, where he says, I'm no longer looking for movies based on paycheck, but for movies where I feel I can really do something with this. I can make this special. And I just think that's fantastic. That's a fantastic mindset for an actor, and that should be rewarded. And the other thing you have to remember is that McConaughey took a risk, and that's also what's being rewarded. Leonardo DiCaprio, as I also said in my Oscar coverage, if he wants to win an Oscar, he needs to risk his career. He needs to risk his paycheck, and he needs to risk his box office track record, neither of which he's willing to do to date. I think somewhat unexpectedly with J. Edgar, but I don't think that was his intention going in. McConaughey turned down big paychecks, took the small grossing films, really risked his entire career to pull off this transformation. DiCaprio is not going to be able to have his cake and eat it too. He should be very happy. He has a ton of fans, a ton of money. He made $10 million, which was half his usual salary for The Wolf of Wall Street. And it's a successful film, did nicely at the box office. Everybody came around on it. So I think that if DiCaprio wants to be a movie star, that's great. But he needs to realize he made a choice to play movie star, not to play Academy Award-winning actor. And those are two different things. So you need to understand that and understand that's how the Academy thinks, and that's why McConaughey won. All right, so the fifth big story. Oh, what a big night. The fifth big story was that Warner Brothers not only was the biggest grossing studio of the year in 2013, but they are now the most rewarded. They had the most Oscars of all the studios. They had 10. They way outdistanced everybody else. 7 were for Gravity. And I think Gravity was very deserving of the mostly technical and craft awards that it won. And I would include Cuarón in that. Again, also, I felt that Cuarón, just like McConaughey, was deserving of his award, not only for the work that he did, but for really moving not only his own career, but the whole the special effects business and what storytelling can achieve forward, but also, dedicating so much of his career to making this movie. He took a huge hiatus from, usually he was quite prolific before Gravity, but then he took a very long break to be able to focus on pulling this off. And so I think that is very deserving of an Oscar, and kudos to him. So 7 for Gravity, 2 for Great Gatsby in costume and I believe set design, or production design, and then 1 for her for best screenplay. Not a lot of surprises, by the way. I'll get into the into the awards in a moment. But so I just wanted to say kudos to Warner Brothers, and I thought it was wonderful that Alfonso Cuarón, speaking of Cuarón, in his acceptance speech, which was quite charming with his broken English, although he has been here for a very long time, but the wise men was very funny. I don't know how intentional that was. But I thought it was wonderful that he gave a shout out to Jeff Robinov, the former head of film production at Warner Brothers, who was forced out by Kevin Tsujihara, who, by the way, now looks to be Robinov to be starting his own independent production company. So expect to see big things coming from him. He has a very wonderful, deep and thick Rolodex. So good for him. And I think he might be going to Sony. I think that's the rumor. But I was very happy to see that Cuarón didn't risk the wrath of Tsujihara. And I guess how upset can Tsujihara be with all the money and awards that Cuarón has given the studio? But Robinov, it's important to remember, Robinov is the one who set up this entire slate that won all these awards and grossed all this money. All right, so now let's move over to talking about the overall show. As I said, I thought Ellen DeGeneres' monologue was very strong. However, I forgot to mention, but I have it in my notes down here, that I thought the Liza Minnelli joke really was a low blow, particularly from Ellen, which is what I think made it seem so awkward. My only guess can be that she was trying to show that she could go where Ricky Gervais and Seth MacFarlane go, and maybe potentially appeal to their audience. But I don't think their audience tuned in to see Ellen, so she only just really ended up, I think, striking the wrong note with her own fans. But even if Gervais or MacFarlane had made that Liza Minnelli joke, I still think it would have been in poor taste because, it wasn't particularly funny, and, Liza Minnelli was there to celebrate her mother of all things, and I just didn't think it was appropriate. Also, the other one bad thing I didn't like about the monologue was that I thought that Ellen DeGeneres stole a joke from Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and that's the Hunger Games reference, saying this is the Hunger Games. And you might remember it was a very good joke from when Tina Fey and Amy Poehler hosted the Golden Globes, not this year, but the year before. It was a two-sided joke with the Hunger Games being, before the Golden Globes, and then the Life of Pi afterwards, when you could eat again after you've gotten into your dress. And I thought that was really clever. And I guess Ellen took the analogy into another place and built on it, but still, stealing someone else's joke is stealing someone else's joke. And there's a lot of other material on the table. I don't think that was necessary. But anyway, again, overall, the monologue, though, I still feel was very strong. However, after that, I think the show lost a lot of steam. It became, almost too casual, like a backyard barbecue. I thought some of her bits worked. I thought the pizza bit worked in places. And I felt that the selfie, as I said, was really the highlight of the evening. And I think probably will be what, makes her considered a win, I guess, for the industry at least. I think that ABC is probably very happy this morning with the job that Ellen DeGeneres did, no matter what some reviewers might be saying, and because of that selfie, which broke Twitter. But then also, beyond being too casual, I felt that the whole telecast became really super boring and like it was trudging on and really became very clearly a work event. Which it is. So I guess, why complain about that then? Because I've been invited to watch it. We've all been invited to watch it. It's not like we're peeking in or have been allowed to sneak in the back and watch a show where we're not supposed to be there. We've been invited to sit front and center, and ABC has sold ads on it. And speaking of ads, I thought it was ironic that the best celebration of film for the evening came from two commercials. I thought that the Google Play ad with Robert Downey Jr.'s voiceover was quite good, as was the Pepsi Minican commercial, which I think was really clever in the way it utilized famous movie lines. And then, of course, had Cuba Gooding Jr. come out at the end. I thought those were both very good and really were more in the spirit that I would have liked to have seen the actual telecast be in. But back to the show, you might notice that it seemed to be particularly slow in the middle of it. There was a chunk that just really, dragged. And the rumor going around is that's because the producers intentionally programmed it that way so that viewers watching True Detective and or Walking Dead could watch those shows and then check back into the Oscars, and they didn't want them to miss anything. And that just makes me, who I don't watch Walking Dead because, as you might recall, zombies really freak me out, but I love True Detective. But I was like, hey, I can watch True Detective Detective a day later, the Oscars are live, it's a big event, I want to be part of that. But now I feel silly. Apparently I could have enjoyed True Detective as I do every Sunday, and then just hopped over to the Oscars where they were apparently waiting for me. And I guess with the selfie, that's one way to admit that nobody's actually tuning into your show. But then to program in around other shows, I think that should just be a real sign that there's a problem with the way the telecast is, that it's a second choice for a viewer, second or third choice, and the Academy knows that and accepted it. That just seems ridiculous to me. They did try and do some celebration of film. I did like the extended clips of the actors' performances when they were being announced in each category. I thought that was nice to get kind of a taste of what they had done. The Hollywood Reporter, by the way, ran some great pieces on Sunday talking about they allowed Academy voters to talk openly because they were anonymous about how they voted and why. And someone said on the audience vote that they were like, I don't want there to be audience vote for the Oscars because they won't have seen all the movies and they won't be responsible. But if you check out these Oscar ballots, you'll see that the Academy voters aren't any more responsible in terms of their choices or even seeing all the movies. I'll put a link to a few of them actually in the video description. They're fascinating to read, and I think really shine a lot of light and understanding on why the Oscars turn out the way they do. But anyway, so I liked that aspect of it. But the heroes montages. Oh, but first also by putting the 3 best pictures together in groups of 3, the 9 into groups of 3. I thought that didn't work either. I thought it took away from the individuality of each film and really kept you from being able to focus on each film. And they didn't even group them together in a way that I thought fit. It was awkward and I didn't think worked. But the real thing that didn't work was these heroes montages. I thought it was a nice idea, but first of all, I thought they were really poorly edited. I'm surprised that the Academy, which I assume has access to the best editors in Hollywood, couldn't put together montages that are as good as the ones put together on YouTube here by many a novice who are just dabbling in this kind of thing. But these I thought were really poorly put together. It was hard to tell what the theme of each montage was. I guess animation was the most obvious because everything was animated, but that had the same problems as well as the other groups, where you couldn't really tell, as I said, the theme. Like you were like, why is Men in Black and why are Men in Black and Jaws in the same clip? Montage. I would have thought it would have been like, okay, let's focus on like animated heroes, superheroes, like comic book characters, everyday heroes, real life heroes. I thought Woodward and Bernstein it was nice to see, all the President's Men in there, but the resonance of that, what they were saying, was lost in that there was no theme or they didn't lead the audience anywhere with the clips. Also, very repetitive. I thought that they showed a lot of Avatar, Shrek, Harry Potter. Someone was joking. I saw some jokes that Harry Potter got more recognition last night than the entire time it was eligible to actually win an Oscar. So I thought that was odd. And also, speaking of that, too current. They've been making movies for a very long time at this point, I believe almost 100 years. And to only show clips from basically the most recent, 10 years, seems really silly to me. And again, Hollywood consistently underestimating the movie-going audience, especially the ones who are tuning into the Oscars. I mean, if anyone is interested in, the history of film and has a attention span for that, it's somebody who's watching your 3.5-hour telecast. That's what I thought of the overall show. As I said, I thought Brad Pitt was really wonderful. I thought he was a very good sport. A lot of, Harrison Ford too, I suppose, was really nice. It was nice to see him awake. I thought Leonardo DiCaprio should have taken that slice of pizza. Also, I thought Angelina Jolie, I thought it was wonderful that she was recognized for her humanitarianism, but she really does seem to be changing her image. They play that Maleficent, I'm getting the list ready of the winners here, if you're wondering what I'm doing. But I thought that, they showed a lot of Maleficent ads, and she seems to be trying to act, I'm not sure, younger, I guess? She has kind of like this girly girl thing going on all of a sudden, not just with Maleficent, but if you'll notice, she seems to have raised the pitch of her voice. It's a very interesting choice. Maybe, I don't know if she feels she's self-conscious that her voice is getting lower and she makes her seem older. I don't know. But there's a distinct change, and it's almost as awkward as when she stuck her leg out last year. And so I thought it was worth mentioning. All right, so let's move on to my thoughts on, really quick, also the best original songs. They're supposed to be a great part of the show. I thought that Pharrell Williams really brought it at the beginning. I thought his Happy performance was a lot of fun, and actually was reminiscent of the kind of performances you see at music awards shows, like even the Grammys, MTV, and I liked that a lot. I thought everybody else couldn't really hold a candle to that. Even Pink, I thought that was a very weak celebration, by the way, of the Wizard of Oz. it's more a celebration of Pink. But Idina Menzel did get to perform the final number, even if John Travolta did mangle her name. I guess that he's the new Elizabeth Taylor, but I guess cut him some slack. I don't know, it's not a very hard name to pronounce at the same time, but it's not like just Chiwetel Ejiofor. But even then, you think he would prepare. But Idina Menzel did a very nice job. I thought her voice seemed to crack towards the end of the song, and so I think that the last line, "The cold never bothered me anyway," seemed a little off, but I'm sure Frozen fans were very happy, and the stage looked beautiful, and I think it was a nice moment for both Idina Menzel and the film itself, which did very well. As we're going to discuss right now, let's talk the main winners. Of course, the big story is that 12 Years a Slave won Best Picture. There was some chance it would go to American Hustle. By the way, American Hustle ended up being completely shut out, as did Wolf of Wall Street. I don't think either picture was particularly robbed. That's just the way things go with the Oscars. Somebody has to be left out. And both films are two of the more successful nominees at the box office, so it's not like they haven't walked away with something. But 12 Years a Slave, I thought Steve McQueen was very endearing with his jumping up and down and his win. For only his third picture, a tremendous amount of talent involved in that film. And I can see a lot of people this morning, a little bit of a backlash towards it, saying they think it was overrated because they're upset that they feel that something else should have won Best Picture. But I think it was an important movie. I do agree with the people saying that it was the Schindler's List of slavery. Schindler's List won Best Picture its year, and I think 12 Years a Slave is a good choice, maybe not for today, but for the ages. And I think that's what the Oscars should be about. And Saving Mr. Banks was nominated. But anyway, even with Saving Mr. Banks in there, I would have still seen 12 Years a Slave winning it and been perfectly fine with it. Next up, Matthew McConaughey. All right, we already discussed this in the opening. Sorry, DiCaprio fans, but as I said, he's very happy and very successful, and maybe someday when he feels he has enough money and he's more successful enough, he will put himself on the line like McConaughey and get that win. Cate Blanchett, Best Actress. No surprise here. There really were no big surprises of the evening, which I think the Oscars maybe should consider rescheduling when they run, because so many of their voters are in other guilds, so it's so easy to guess who's going to win. So Cate Blanchett won for Blue Jasmine, very nice. Then for best supporting actor was Jared Leto. Again, everybody expected it. Lupita Nyong'o, discussed her, best supporting. She was excellent. Then for director, you have Alfonso Cuarón for Gravity. As I said, he really did put himself on the line. I think Gravity is deserving of the craft and technical awards that it did win. It really was a game changer, I think, for Hollywood. And while I had problems, big problems with the script and the depiction of Sandra Bullock's character, etc., and I felt the film was emotionally manipulative, I still stand by that. And I think you can see that reflected a little bit here with no wins for actor or screenplay. I believe, actually, yes, it wasn't even nominated for screenplay. So I think Hollywood feels similarly. But Cuarón, he led the charge on this technical movement. He put, like McConaughey, as I said, he put his career on the line. And I think he was very deserving and, as I said, quite charming in his acceptance speech. And definitely more deserving, I feel, than anybody else in this category. Best Original Screenplay, Spike Jonze, Her. That's what I was rooting for. That's what you were rooting for. We all knew it was going to win. Adapted Screenplay. This is where Wolf of Wall Street could have had an upset, but John Ridley won the day. I thought he was quite endearing, though, with his acceptance speech as well. I thought the reference to notes on scripts, I thought, as any writer will tell you, I write comics. I've written some scripts back when I was in film school. I've had my own run-ins with the infamous red pen, and I think it was nice for him to acknowledge that while editing is tough and feedback is tough to get, it's important to be able to reach the heights that Ridley has reached. And so I thought that was a really eloquent speech that was, I think, potentially helpful to anyone watching. I thought that was nice. I did like a lot of also, both Leto's shout out to the Ukraine and Venezuela, and Lupita Nyong'o talking about that if you can dream it, you can do it. I thought that was a very nice touch and has been missing from some Oscar telecasts recently. Then Let It Go won for Best Original Song, which I'm sure everyone's very happy with. I think, though, I agree with you. I think this is the category that Frozen should have won. Let It Go is truly a phenomenon. It is the song that is responsible for the success of that film, and it's truly a winner in every shape, in every regard, in every shape and form. And I thought that the Anderson Lopez's acceptance speech was really cute. And you notice they mentioned Frozen 2. So they're gunning for that. Everybody's talking Frozen 2. I really do think, I mean, it'll be the first big theatrical release. I think there have been other ones, but it'll be the first big theatrically released sequel you see from Disney Animation. They'd be crazy not to do it at this point. As Frozen crossed $1 billion at the box office, we'll be talking about it a little bit on Movie Map later today. And then let's just touch on the last one here, Best Animated Feature. Again, like Gravity, I understand why it won. I'm a little disappointed, though, that this one won. Gravity's awards I thought were all deserving, but I think that Frozen, you know, I didn't get to air my Best Animated Feature episode for the Oscars because I ran out of time, and I apologize for that again. But something that I had gone into was that the Best Animated Feature category these days seems to be more about celebrating success in box office and business, which, as you all know, I respect tremendously, than really the craft. And that's where I differ, though. I feel that the Oscars is supposed to be about craft, not about box office. The box office is its own reward, and you see that reflected in other areas of Hollywood, rightfully so. But I don't think you should see that reflected at the Oscars. I don't think that's what the Oscars should be about. But on the flip side, and we've discussed this, I do think blockbusters that are well made should be recognized. And again, that, you know, I think Hollywood, for some reason, while they don't recognize success in live action film, for some reason they recognize it in animation. And I suspect that might be because a lot of Academy voters don't watch animated movies, so they really have no other way to judge it, which is really a shame and a disservice to animation fans in the animation industry. So the reason that I feel that Frozen doesn't deserve it is because it's certainly a successful film. As I say, it deserves Let It Go. But The Wind Rises is truly, I feel, a better film. And even if The Wind Rises wasn't in the category, I think Frozen is flawed in terms of a lot of its story structure. I think it was it's obviously was rehashed at the last moment, and I'm glad that Disney got away with it. I'm glad that it all worked out, but I don't think that you should slap an Oscar on that, which was basically a last-minute fix. And I think that these days, it makes it clear that the real recognition for quality work in animation in terms of craft and you know, and creative work comes when it's able to also get a nomination in the Best Picture category as well. So that would mean really only Beauty and the Beast, Up, and Toy Story 3 are the films that have gotten the worthy recognition. So it's almost to the point where the Best Animated Feature category isn't that important anymore, and you really have to, you have to see if an animated feature can get into the picture category if it's really, made it. All right, so that's my thoughts on the Oscars. Thank you for tuning in. I did put in bookmarks so that you could jump around. Really interesting show. It was a very long award season thanks to the Olympics. It's finally over. I'm curious how you guys feel. Did it drag on too long? Did you care by the time the Oscars came around? What did you think of Ellen's performance? What did you think of the winners? Have I made anyone feel a little better about their sadness for Leonardo DiCaprio? And how do you feel about Warner Brothers' success both at the box office and at the awards? And what do you think of Frozen? Do you agree with my thoughts on it, or are you still strongly in the Frozen camp and you feel that it's a perfect film and deserves every award that it gets? All right, thank you so much for everybody tuning in for the Oscar coverage. Again, you can check out the audience vote. I'll put a link to it right now. And I hope now it's time to talk about a whole new year of movies. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.